Arsenal final training session. Ahead of tonight's UEFA Champions League clash. The floodlights are ready, the pitch is pristine, and the sense of European occasion is unmistakable. On the morning of a Champions League matchday, Arsenal's training ground becomes a place of calm intensity. Focused, deliberate, and quietly confident. Today was no different as Mikel Arteta and his squad completed their final preparations ahead of tonight's UEFA Champions League fixture, a match that could shape the narrative of Arsenal's European campaign. At London Colney, the session was not about heavy workloads or exhausting drills. Instead, it was about sharpness, clarity of thought, and collective belief. Every pass, every movement, and every instruction carried meaning. Champions League football demands precision, and Arsenal's training reflected that reality from the very first whistle. A calm but focused atmosphere at London Colney. As players arrived early in the morning, there was a visible sense of professionalism across the squad. No distractions, no unnecessary noise, just quiet focus. Music played softly in the background as players went through mobility routines while coaching staff gathered around digital boards reviewing final tactical reminders. Arteta, dressed in his familiar training kit, was fully engaged from the start. He moved constantly between groups, speaking individually to players, offering encouragement, corrections, and clarity. This was not a manager overseeing from a distance. This was a coach deeply embedded in the details. The Champions League for Arteta is not just another competition. It is a stage where structure, discipline, and emotional control matter just as much as talent. Today's training session reflected that philosophy. Warm-up, sharpness over intensity. The session began with a structured warm-up focusing on agility, balance, and reaction time. Short sprints, lateral movements, and quick turns were prioritized, ensuring players were fully alert without draining energy. What stood out immediately was the sharpness. Touches were crisp, communication was constant, and the tempo was controlled but purposeful. Even in warm-up drills, the players treated every action with seriousness. There were smiles, yes, but no complacency. Senior players led by example, setting standards for the younger members of the squad. The message was clear. This is Champions League football, and details matter. Tactical shape and defensive organization. As the session progressed, the focus shifted to tactical organization. Arsenal worked extensively on their defensive shape, particularly how they transition when possession is lost. Arteta halted play frequently, repositioning players by hand, emphasizing spacing between the lines and compactness in midfield. The backline worked on maintaining a high but controlled defensive line, while midfielders drilled recovery runs and pressing triggers. One of the key themes was communication. Players were constantly reminded to talk, point, and guide each other. In Europe, silence can be fatal. Arsenal's training showed a team determined to avoid that mistake. Midfield control, the heart of Arsenal's game. The midfield session was intense. Small-sided drills focused on ball retention under pressure, quick decision-making, and positional discipline. Arteta demanded tempo but also patience, encouraging players to recycle possession when needed rather than forcing risky passes. There was a clear emphasis on controlling the rhythm of the game. In the Champions League, moments of chaos must be minimized, and Arsenal trained accordingly. Players were instructed to recognize when to slow the game down and when to accelerate. This balance between aggression and composure has become a defining feature of Arteta's Arsenal, and today's training reinforced that identity. Attacking patterns and final third movement. The latter part of the session belonged to the attackers. Arsenal worked through a series of attacking patterns designed to break down compact defenses, a common challenge in European football. Wide players practiced timing their runs, while central forwards focused on movement between defenders. Overlaps, underlaps, and quick 1-2s were rehearsed repeatedly. Arteta demanded precision. Runs had to be sharp, passes weighted perfectly, and decisions made in split seconds. Finishing drills followed, with an emphasis on efficiency rather than power. First-time finishes, low shots across goal, and composed strikes inside the box were prioritized. The coaching staff encouraged calmness, reminding players that chances in the Champions League can be limited and conversion is crucial. Set-piece preparation. Margins that matter. Set pieces received significant attention during the session. Both attacking and defensive scenarios were rehearsed extensively. On attacking corners, Arsenal experimented with different delivery angles and movement patterns, aiming to create space through decoy runs and late arrivals. Defensively, the focus was on concentration, marking responsibility, and second ball reactions. Arteta's staff understands that European matches are often decided by fine margins. A single set-piece lapse can undo 90 minutes of control. Today's drills reflected that awareness. Goalkeepers. Quiet confidence at the back. While outfield players worked through tactical sequences, the goalkeepers trained separately under the watchful eye of the goalkeeping coach. Reflex saves, distribution under pressure, and command of the penalty area were all part of the routine. Distribution in particular was emphasized. Arsenal's build-up play begins with the goalkeeper, and Champions League opponents are ruthless in pressing mistakes. The keepers were drilled to remain calm, scan the pitch, and make decisive passes. There was an air of quiet confidence among the goalkeeping group, focused, composed, and fully prepared. Squad depth and rotation considerations. One of the defining features of Arsenal's recent European campaign has been squad rotation. Today's training hinted at flexibility in selection, with multiple players trialed in different roles during tactical drills. Arteta appears keen to maintain freshness without sacrificing cohesion. The session showed a squad that understands its roles, regardless of who starts or comes off the bench. That adaptability is vital in a competition where schedules are tight and physical demands are high. Young players trained alongside experienced leaders, absorbing instructions and intensity. The blend of youth and experience remains a cornerstone of Arsenal's approach. Mental preparation, more than just tactics. As training drew to a close, players gathered in a tight circle. Arteta spoke briefly but with intensity. While the words were not audible, the body language spoke volumes. Focused, unified, and determined. Champions League nights are as much mental battles as physical ones. Arsenal's preparation today went beyond drills and tactics. It was about belief, discipline, and trust in the collective. The players left the pitch knowing their responsibilities, understanding the plan, and confident in their ability to execute it. The European identity Arteta is building this training session was not just about tonight's match. It was a reflection of a broader project. The construction of Arsenal as a serious European force once again. Under Arteta, the club has rediscovered its identity, structured yet expressive, disciplined yet ambitious. Today's training embodied that balance. Every movement, every pause, every instruction served a purpose. This was not training for training's sake. This was preparation for a night where reputations can be made and campaigns defined. Arsenal transfer news. Julian Alvarez stance on £87 million switch. Emerges as manager addresses deal. Arsenal have been linked with several deals as the January transfer window continues. Arsenal could still finalize several deals as transfer deadline day approaches. The Gunners arguably have the strongest squad in the Premier League, but Mikel Arteta's side still have issues that could be addressed in the January window. The Gunners hold a 4-point lead at the top of the league table, despite their defeat to Manchester United, and continue to compete across 4 competitions. The club's immediate attention turns to Kairat on Wednesday, with Arsenal targeting a flawless 8 wins from 8 in the Champions League. While there will be plenty of attention paid to how Arteta could choose to strengthen his squad, new Marseille loanee Ethan Nwaneri has already shown how a move away from the club can be beneficial for those on the fringes of the Arsenal team. Here's a closer look at some of the latest transfer headlines surrounding the Gunners. Julian Alvarez stance. Arsenal have been linked with an interest in Atletico Madrid striker Julian Alvarez during the January transfer window. The former Manchester City star has scored 40 in 86 games since joining the Spanish side in 2024. ESPN reported that the Gunners are exploring a potential summer move for Alvarez, who would cost around £87 million. Arsenal already have Victor Gyökeres, Gabriel Jesus, and Kai Havertz at their disposal. However, Gary Lineker has argued that Alvarez would improve their front line, while revealing that he knows the forward is unhappy at his current club, hinting he could be open to a move. Julian Alvarez stance on £87 million. Switch emerges as manager addresses deal. As the January transfer window edges toward its decisive phase, Arsenal's search for a clinical, elite forward has once again placed them at the center of Europe's transfer conversation. This time, the focus is firmly on Julian Alvarez, a forward whose versatility, intelligence, and relentless pressing have made him one of the most coveted attackers in world football. Reports suggesting a potential £87 million move have ignited debate across North London and beyond, with Arsenal supporters daring to imagine what the Argentine could bring to Mikel Arteta's evolving side. While Arsenal have been linked with countless forwards in recent windows, Alvarez represents something different. He is not a developmental gamble nor a stylistic experiment. He is a proven winner, a Champions League performer, a World Cup champion, and a player entering the prime years of his career. That combination alone explains why his name refuses to disappear from Arsenal's transfer radar. Arsenal's need. Why a player like Alvarez matters. Arsenal's rise under Arteta has been built on control, structure, and positional intelligence. Yet, despite their tactical maturity, one question has persisted across multiple campaigns. Can Arsenal consistently convert dominance into decisive goals at the highest level? The Gunners have developed wide threats in Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli, creativity through Martin Odegaard, and depth across midfield. However, the absence of a forward who blends elite finishing with relentless off-ball work has occasionally limited Arsenal in decisive moments, especially in tight title races and knockout competitions. Julian Alvarez fits that missing profile almost perfectly. He is not a traditional number 9 glued to the penalty area, nor is he a pure second striker. Instead, he thrives in the spaces between defenders, presses aggressively from the front, and possesses the technical quality to drop deep and link play. For an Arteta system that demands collective pressing and positional discipline, Alvarez's tactical intelligence stands out as much as his goal output. The £87 million. Valuation. How the price emerged. The reported £87 million figure attached to Alvarez is not arbitrary. It reflects several converging factors in the modern transfer market. First, there is the player's age and pedigree. Alvarez is not an untested prospect. He has already accumulated silverware at both club and international level. Second, his contract situation offers selling clubs leverage. Third, the scarcity of elite forwards who can both score and press at the highest level inflates demand. For Arsenal, such a fee would place Alvarez among the most expensive signings in the club's history. That reality alone has sparked debate among supporters and pundits alike. Is this the moment for Arsenal to make a statement signing that signals their readiness to dominate domestically and compete consistently in Europe? Internally, Arsenal's recruitment strategy has shifted over recent seasons toward investing heavily in players who align precisely with Arteta's vision. Declan Rice's arrival exemplified this shift. Expensive, yes, but transformative. Alvarez is viewed in similar terms, a player whose impact could justify the outlay over several seasons. Alvarez's stance, ambition, role, and playing time. Central to the story is Julian Alvarez himself. Sources close to the situation suggest that the player's stance is driven less by money and more by role clarity and long-term ambition. Alvarez is understood to be at a stage of his career where regular starts in decisive matches matter more than squad rotation or reputation. Despite his success, Alvarez has often found himself balancing between roles, sometimes starting, sometimes sacrificing his preferred position for tactical reasons. That experience has shaped his outlook. He is believed to be open to a move that offers him a clearly defined role as a focal point in attack, rather than a complementary piece. Arsenal's pitch in that sense is compelling. Arteta's system does not rely on a single static striker. Instead, it encourages intelligent movement, positional rotation, and collective pressing. Alvarez would not be asked to adapt to an unfamiliar philosophy. He would be asked to elevate one already aligned with his strengths. Manager addresses the situation. Measured words, strategic silence. When asked about transfer speculations surrounding elite forwards, Arsenal's manager adopted a familiar tone. Calm, controlled, and deliberately non-committal. Rather than addressing specific names, Arteta emphasized the club's commitment to improving the squad with players who add quality, mentality, and adaptability. This approach is intentional. Publicly acknowledging interest in a player of Alvarez's profile would only intensify scrutiny and inflate expectations. Instead, Arteta has chosen to frame Arsenal's transfer activity as part of a broader evolution rather than a reactionary move. Behind the scenes, however, Arsenal's recruitment team is believed to be deeply engaged in scenario planning. That includes assessing financial structures, squad balance, and the ripple effects of such a marquee signing. A player like Alvarez would not arrive in isolation. His signing would influence roles, rotations, and even future departures. Tactical fit. How Alvarez could transform Arsenal. From a tactical perspective, Alvarez offers Arteta something rare. Flexibility without compromise. He can lead the line, operate as a second striker, or even drop into advanced midfield zones when required. This versatility would allow Arsenal to adapt seamlessly between domestic fixtures and European encounters. In matches where Arsenal dominate possession, Alvarez's sharp movement and finishing would provide an extra edge inside the box. Against stronger opponents, his pressing intensity and work rate would enhance Arsenal's defensive structure from the front. Perhaps most importantly, Alvarez brings a ruthless edge. The ability to score decisive goals in high-pressure moments. That quality has often been the difference between contenders and champions. Financial reality. Can Arsenal justify the investment? The financial implications of an £87 million transfer cannot be ignored. Arsenal's ownership has shown willingness to back Arteta, but such a deal would require careful structuring. Installments, performance-based bonuses, and wage alignment would all play a role. However, Arsenal's improved commercial position, consistent Champions League qualification, and growing global brand strengthen their ability to absorb such an investment. From a business perspective, Alvarez's profile also offers marketing appeal, particularly in South American markets where Arsenal's presence continues to expand. Dressing room impact and squad dynamics. Introducing a player of Alvarez's stature would inevitably reshape the dressing room hierarchy. Competition for places would intensify, pushing existing attackers to elevate their performances. Arteta has consistently welcomed such competition, viewing it as essential for sustaining elite standards. Rather than disrupting harmony, a signing of this magnitude could reinforce Arsenal's ambition. It would send a message that excellence is non-negotiable and that success demands constant evolution. Fan reaction, hope, debate, and expectation. Among Arsenal supporters, the reaction has been predictably intense. Some see Alvarez as the final piece of the puzzle, the signing that could turn near misses into trophies. Others question whether such a fee is prudent, especially in a market prone to inflation and uncertainty. Yet even skeptics acknowledge the logic behind the link. Alvarez embodies the traits Arsenal value: intelligence, intensity, humility, and hunger. Oleksandr Zinchenko is currently in the process of joining Dutch club Ajax from Arsenal, having spent the first half of the 2025-26 season on loan at Nottingham Forest. While initially reported as a loan move, recent negotiations as of January 27, 2026, indicate the deal may transition into a permanent transfer. Oleksandr Zinchenko, reportedly nearing Ajax move. Oleksandr Zinchenko closing in on Ajax move as Arsenal consider squad reshuffle. Oleksandr Zinchenko is reportedly edging closer to a move to Ajax, with discussions progressing as Arsenal continue to reshape their squad ahead of the next phase of Mikel Arteta's project. While no formal announcement has been made, Sources close to the negotiations suggest that the framework of a deal is now in place, with all parties broadly aligned on the direction of the transfer. The proposed move would mark the end of Zinchenko's spell in North London and represent a significant addition for Ajax, who are seeking experienced reinforcements as they rebuild both domestically and in European competition. Arsenal's changing landscape. Zinchenko joined Arsenal with a reputation as a tactically sophisticated player, capable of operating across multiple roles. His arrival coincided with a pivotal period in the club's development, as Arteta sought to implement a positional system based on control, build-up structure,